I've heard you in interviews talk about how you kind of think that another thing to preserve, not just having a Christian government, but also making sure that immigration is either stopped or at least it's severely reduced.
Yeah, well,
And
I mean, given my what I presented earlier, which is this idea that that we are connected to people based upon a relation of kind of our ancestral connection to a place and other people's ancestral connection to a place,
right.
not race or blood, like I said, but um, that would mean that if you flood, it doesn't matter who the immigrants are. It doesn't matter if they're Russians or they're Mexicans or they're I don't know, I guess even Canadians, but it doesn't matter who they are. If you, I mean, in a way, Canadian. Well, anyway, I won't get to that. But uh, but I mean, if you do that, what you're doing is you're introducing people from a very like a different place to a new place, and that's okay on like the individual level. Even people like I know, even people like Enoch Powell, like the British guy, very controversial. Even he was like, yeah, I mean, I'm okay with immigration. I just
Hmm.
mass immigration is a problem. So, but like individual immigration is fine because then people become integrated into society and they become ancestrally one of us. And there's no problem with that. And you see this, I mean, the US has seen this in its history significantly in how people come here and we kind of become one. But like with mass immigration, especially if it's like a constant flow, that means in your communities, you have a constant stream of people who have no actual ancestral connection to this place. Okay.
Hmm.
And so you're constantly dealing with that issue because one of the things is like this reciprocal nature of like if your people have been here for a long time, you have this like reciprocity in the sense with the place itself. Like this, I love this place. I'm not going to just kind of take. I'm just not going to take. But if you're new here, you don't actually have that. And this people are going to say this sounds like racist or something, but it doesn't matter what race someone is. This is true for everyone. There can be this like sense in which you don't have a reciprocal relationship to that place, but more of a sort of exploitive. Like you come here for economic benefits, you work, you get the economic benefits of it, but it's not like this reciprocity between your love of this place rooted in generations, but it's more of taking advantage of the material conditions that make it kind of give you sort of better life in that sense.
Hmm.
And but what being here for several generations means is that this is your home. You have no place to go. If things go bad, you're not fleeing. I mean, think of like remember Ukraine, like when Russians attacked Ukraine, people were trying to flee Ukraine. Plenty of Ukrainians were too. But if you look at the some of the videos I saw of people getting on trains, they're mainly foreigners. They were non-Ukrainian workers. They're
Hmm.
like, "This is my country. I'm out of here," and so they got out. And it's understandable. If I was in Ukraine, I'd be like, "I'm out of here. I'm not fighting for this place. It's not my country." But if these same people had been there for years, for generations, regardless of their historical national origin or their ancestry, they'd say, "This is my home, and I'm going to stand next to my Ukrainian, like the whatever racial Ukrainian, whatever you want to say, and I'm going to fight for it." And so this is my point. Now everyone's going to think I'm like racist or whatever, but the um what I'm saying is that we cut off. Like I don't want immigration from anywhere because I think we need to, as a country, build up generations. The people here we need to start building up generations of people here so that this becomes their home based upon that love that I talked about before. That makes sense. And this what
Yeah,
that's
it
my
takes.
motivation. It's not because there's too many Mexicans, it's not because there's too many this or that. It's because there's a it's very disruptive of that process of becoming a people when you have constant flow of people who have to now jumpstart their kind of in a way their new connection to a place.
Well, you even talk
Makes sense.
about English people escaping persecution, going to other places in the world and not fitting in, being
Oh
barred
yeah, yeah. Yeah, this is
from.
one of the things like people are like, well, all my, all my examples in the book of actually cultural conflict are between white people,
Right.
to my knowledge. And the examples I used is during the like 1540s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. So during kind of the Reformation era, And during the persecution in England, a lot of Protestants from Scotland and England fled to the continent, and they stayed in usually these key cities like Strasbourg, Geneva. Um, what other cities did I say? I'm on top of my head. I can't think for some reason, but they go to these places, and they would they would cause a lot of conflict, and it was cultural conflict. Differences in part in religion had a big part of it, but also cultural conflict. The towns themselves would say that, okay, you artisans from England, you can't practice your craft here because you're competing and have different ways, and you're undercutting and doing this now. We like we don't conduct business like you guys do, and you're taking advantage of that. And so they would cut them off from being able to practice their craft. And they did this because there was like a sense in which all these English newcomers were disrupting their way of life. Um, and yeah, and so it's just a clear example of how cultural differences can be very disruptive. But anyway, yeah,
No, our
that's
differences make us strong, Stephen. You don't understand. No, and there's so much more. I know we're running out of time here, but there's so much more in the book. I just wish we could talk about. You talk about some really helpful, honestly, probably one of the most helpful areas in the book, which we could have spent a whole podcast on. Is you're talking about revolution and Christians' duty in some cases even to disobey, to even replace governments with. I mean, it's stuff you're not hearing from your top 10 CBD books, and I think gives you a kind of a path for some of the tyranny that we might have coming upon us in some areas.
yeah.
That and I think that was super helpful just to even know the history, to know that there's Christians who have had these thoughts and written on them, because we're totally uh, kept from thinking those thoughts or understanding what those before us have written on this, and you just bring it right back up. So I
Yeah,
appreciate
so I
that.
mean, so in the book, I have several chapters that deal with the definition, and I kind of, in a way, I close. I don't know, seventh chapter. I forget which one. I say, okay, I'm kind of done with the definition of Christian nationalism, but I have to deal with some other things. I want to deal with religious liberty. I want to deal with revolution. I want to deal with some American history, and yeah. So I have the chapter on revolution. It follows from some of the conclusions from the chapter on the Christian prince for the magistrate. And so I don't want to give the full argument here, but yeah, I thought that was necessary. It's kind of weird how American Christians are so uh, kind of scared of the idea of revolution, because like we were, how do you think we came about, people? There's a revolution, obviously, and so this was kind of a way to justify, to provide I think a justification for revolution. Um, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. I don't get in the argument. Would just be it's kind of an involved argument because it's a very complex. It's not as obvious as, oh, we have a tyrant, so let's just go pick up our guns and
Or
fight. It's a
rakes.
pretty
Yeah.
pretty complex. Yeah, I mean, there's got to be theoretical justification because uh, civil rulers are they have their power of God, um, and in a way, going to, like conducting a revolution is resisting that person who is magistrate or sort of deputy of God. So how do you work like issues of kind of the questions that arise from reading like Romans 13? Like how do you deal with this question of, well, are you resisting God because he's the deputy of God and you're doing a revolution against him? Like then there's the Nero question and all that. So
Yeah.
someone would have to just read the chapter to understand the argument, but
Well, you're very
yeah,
careful. I appreciate
yeah.
that. You're not throwing flames or anything like that. Um,
Yeah, and I mean, and one
no,
point is like we also have to think through this carefully. Like most revolutions in history just didn't end up well. Like the American Revolution is a very unique instance where it actually ended well, right? I mean, there's some revolutions that were in a way successful, like the French Revolution, but then ended poorly for several reasons in several ways and times. Um, Even though I don't, but that's another subject. But a lot of other revolutions either were unsuccessful as in actually deposing, and when they were successful in deposing, actually ended up being a nightmare. So, well, so you have to be very careful in how you go about doing it,
yeah.
whether it's feasible and all that.
You have also a section. I thought actually it was the most potentially controversial section on the enforcement, the civil magistrates' enforcement of both tables of the law,
Yeah.
and justifying even things like the civil magistrate punishing blasphemy and these kinds of things. Or and I thought you made such a strong case from Christian tradition, at least, that it has to be those who are going to object to it have got to do actual homework. They can't just be sloppy and say, Stephen's a Christo-fascist, or he's doesn't believe in freedom of speech, because you even say you believe in freedom of speech there. But it was, man, opened my eyes, even that section. History I knew, because if you study political history, you obviously know that some of these things were punished, but the rationale behind why was is not
Yeah.
really taught much. So another very helpful section, in my opinion.
Yeah, so that's a chapter on what's the title? Like Liberty of Conscience. I don't remember the title of the chapter now. That
I
was an
believe
editor's
so.
choice probably anyway. But yeah, like Liberty of Conscience, chapter 9 I perhaps. And
Yep, chapter 9. Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, and I spent probably like a few pages saying now what I'm not well, I don't say what I'm not saying. I'm saying the question. So I spend like a time saying what is the actual question here? And that's an old method of trying to boil down exactly what the dispute is. And I think right off the bat, from just saying, I'm not like, the question is not this, not that, not that, that, it precludes like almost all the objections you hear from this. And then I get to the actual question. The question is, I mean, do you have it in front of you? You can read it, but
Oh,
there's an
yeah,
actual,
I can pull it up. Sure.
but yeah, there's, the funny thing is, I actually don't have a copy of the book yet.
Well, are you serious?
I do not have. It's not the editor's fault. They actually, when I was in Moscow, they handed me a book and said, "Oh,
Uh-huh.
here." And I was like, "Okay, thanks." And I put it down. I did one of those video interviews, and then I walked
Uh-huh.
away and left it,
Oh
and I didn't
no.
get it back. But I really don't care. I got a copy online. But, I
You
mean,
bought your own, you had to buy your own book.
no, no, no. I
Oh,
have
okay.
the PDF.
Um, so the question,
Should be
doesn't
the
Christian
longer
Nash,
one.
the longer one? Um, I'm trying to find what pages.
It doesn't matter. But the idea here is
Oh,
that.
so
Oh,
wait, I think
go
I
ahead.
found it. The question is whether a Christian magistrate having civil rule over a civil society of Christians may punish false teachers, heretics, blasphemers, and idolaters for their external expression of such things in order to prevent any injury to the souls of the people of God, the subversion of Christian government, Christian culture, or spiritual discipline, or civil disruption or unrest. Is that the one?
Yeah. So the key
Yeah.
things is external. So once, to my mind, like, so you can't punish people for their beliefs in themselves. You can't punish people for having false beliefs as an internal thing. You can't pry open people's souls and say, "Do you really believe this?" And then if they say no, you hit them or whatever. You don't actually persecute the conscience itself as an internal matter, but what I say is external religion, external or an expression of it, and this would be, and you can punish that, and it wouldn't be, the punishment is not simply because they said it. It's not to try to correct them from not believing it. It's a sort of protection of the people who might end up hearing it, such that it might harm their souls or might disrupt the society. Let's say you live in a Christian society that's generally Orthodox, and you have some guy spouting off anti-Trinitarianism or some kind of anti, or like some sort of like atheism. Let's just go atheism. Atheism is a
Well,
better
well, I
example.
could ask that. I literally have a patron who asked, "Would you shut down mosques, Hindu worship centers?" So
Yeah.
we use that as an example.
So like in the United States, we have like a thorough tradition of religious liberty along those lines, and I don't see why you can't have a thoroughly Christian society, Christian government, even like a sort of established church, and still permit people to have their own independent place of worship. So, like, even, I mean, Jews were clearly like persecuted and disliked for much of, even among the reformers and post Reformation guys. But most of them said that Jews could have like their own synagogues. So even in a time where people were extremely assertive about what's true religion here now, and no one's gonna, they still said Jews can have their own synagogues. Now, in our day with the American tradition, yes, I mean, you can, that would all be permitted, but that doesn't mean that you're committed to neutrality. So it means that they would be exceptions to the norm. So like in a school, like a public schools should be Christian schools, and a public school that's a Christian school doesn't mean that you would deny people who are non-Christians from being in the school, from participating in the school, but they would be exceptions to the norm. And so if let's say there's like a Christmas, a Christmas play or whatever, and they don't want to participate in the Christmas play because they're not Christians. I mean, that's understandable. So you say, well, you don't have to participate in the play, but it would be expected of everyone else to do that. Yeah. So I guess the
Well,
answer to the question is no, you would not shut down these things. Um,
like when I was
yeah, I
growing
just
up, this is a good example. Maybe there was a park, right, that would display a Christmas tree and a nativity set every year. And when I
Mhm.
was like maybe 8 or 9, 10, they put in a Hanukkah display and menorah. And then when I was like 18 or so, 17, 18, all of a sudden all these like Hindu and Muslim and other religious things were at the park. In your thinking as a Christian society, you wouldn't be required to, or you would not have to put these other displays up, I would think, right? It would be
no, no, you shouldn't do that. No.
right,
So
right.
the public the public institutions are would be Christian institutions, and so they would, if you want to do a nativity scene, Presbyterians might not like it, but and some of the Congregationalists, but
Didn't even
but
think of that.
the
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I guess you could have like a manger, but just not the baby. I don't know how they do that thing, but uh,
There you go.
yeah,
Okay. So I
lost my
mean,
train of thought. Oh yeah,
yeah.
so you would just have the Christian because it's a Christian place. I mean, would you? And people like get up in arms like, oh, I can't believe, okay, well, I mean, if you lived in a Muslim country, would you expect them to do something for Christmas in the Muslim country? I mean, of course we wouldn't because Muslims have like the strength of will to say no, unlike us.
Oh, we'd be afraid to ask
Um,
the question from the
yeah,
get
but I
go.
mean,
Yeah.
we would like imagine Christians being like this demanding,
Yeah. Yeah. You have
like
to put our
yeah,
thing
you
up.
have to somehow. It is one of these weird. I don't think it's a Christian thing. I think it's a Western thing. It's a Western mental habit where we respect the demands of people, but would never make the same demands for ourselves. Okay, so like Christians in the West, or just Westerners in general, like you said, there was the Christmas scene or the Christian scene, and then these other people said, well, religious liberty demand. I demand all these other religious displays as well, and we say,
Hmm.
okay, yeah, would they demand it? We should respect it. But Christians would never do that themselves. In a way, like we respect and acknowledge other people's demands, but then would say it's sin for us to do that. In fact, our impulse would be to like, yeah, we shouldn't have anything Christian, but we should put every Muslim thing up. We should have every Hindu. That's like it's a weird like self-degrading like mental habit we
Look
have
how
where
inclusive we are.
like
Yeah.
we're passive with regard to our own beliefs and our own positions, but everyone else who makes these firm demands, we just kind of like, oh yeah, okay, we obey, and yeah, you can just do whatever you want. So
Yeah.
it's a weird thing,
It's a
but
pathological.
yeah, but like in a Christian nation and that's self-affirming and explicitly Christian, yeah, it'll just be Christian things with exceptions.
Now, I have one question from someone on Patreon that asks, are you worried about this movement, Christian nationalism, being hijacked by individuals who desire power? And are you willing to use the name of Christ? I mean, this is so early to ask this question, but further on down the line, this takes off. Your book is selling well. People are responding. Are you worried about people jumping in line, Republicans, for instance, who don't really share your values, saying, well, yeah, I'm a Christian nationalist. Uh, I mean,
Yeah.
they've done it before. So has that crossed your
Um,
mind at all or no?
Well, I guess I mean it has crossed my mind. I mean, it's so early. I didn't know this
Yeah,
was going to
it's
reach
early.
top 100 on Amazon yesterday. So I
Did it
didn't know it.
yesterday?
Yeah, yesterday
Oh,
it was 80
congratulations.
84
Wow.
total number.
Why
The
is that? You
rank.
think, what do you attribute that to?
So the first thing is I think that people desperately needed they a lot of guys in particular needed something. They wanted something like this that is just an unashamed, direct, rational, dare I say, masculine approach to a question, and just state it bluntly. And I think that's they want that. And in other words, they wanted to. I think they wanted to read something that treats them like men instead of one children and one female adjacent. So they wanted that. I think the other thing too is Canon's very good at marketing and advertising, and they have a pretty big following. And then also like other people like the NatCon people have helped me out a bit,
Hmm.
and other things. So it's just been I'm just incredibly grateful because I'm just like this guy living out in the woods who wrote a book, and so it's been really great to see just random people I don't even know. Like I'm so excited about Wolf's book. It's like wow, cool. So it's very kind of a grassroots thing. Like I haven't had. There's also been free advertisement from neurotic enemies as well. So I
I've
appreciate that as
noticed
well.
that. Yes,
Yeah, like
it
mentally
helps.
ill, like the mentally ill people have been very generous with their negativity towards me and their advertising. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that as well. But anyway, what
Oh,
was the original question again?
well, you worried about it being
Oh
taken
yeah,
over
yeah, yeah,
by
yeah. I
Republicans or
mean, yeah,
something.
sure. I mean, yeah, I guess it could be worried about it, but that's true for anything, right? I
Right.
mean, it isn't everything can be hijacked. I mean, I think it's a legitimate concern, but it's also like I just want to critique the habit. There is this thing in the West where I mean, you kind of see like Rusty Reno's, what's the title again? The Return of the Strong Gods. I have it right next to me.
Hmm.
Return of the Strong Gods, where people since World War II have been so like this idea that this is kind of scary. Like Nazism was scary. What we learned in some history books was scary. And well, what if this sounds strong? Like these are strong claims. What if someone hijacks it? Well, I mean, yeah, that could happen. But that's true for everything. But I think it's a habit that we have to then say, okay, let's dial it back and just be good old kind of like secularist again and just be neutral. Let's dial it back because this could be bad. Well, no, I mean, um, let's do our best to not have this happen, but let's not be pacified because we're afraid of of this sort of thing. I mean, there are like some politicians out there that make me kind of nervous, but yeah, and they're goofy, and I don't think they know what they're talking about. But there is a place for people like that. I mean,
Hmm.
like
Every movement has it. Yeah.
every movement's gonna have. I say this like in the conclusion, very briefly. I say like movements have like their intellectuals, they have their book writers, then they have their foot soldiers, they have their warriors, they have the popularizers, the advertise. They have these people, and sometimes like the people who are a little kind of off are can actually bring the movement up, take it a long ways. So
Yeah, they're willing to take risks sometimes that more
yeah,
careful
yeah,
people aren't, and that you need that for sure.
yeah.
So, yeah, what are your plans for the future? I'm just curious. I mean, you weren't expecting the success of this. I mean, are you running for public office? Are
No,
you?
absolutely, absolutely not.
Yeah. Okay.
I just want to. Yeah, I'm like I just mentioned the list of people. I'm the book writer, and I have friends who are great networkers. I have friends who are good foot soldiers and warriors, and I think we should all work together and not look to don't look to Wolf to be like this, the guy who's going to bring about the Christian nationalist state. It has to be something we do together with the diversity of our gifts. And so for me, I'm thinking about what's my next book. To be honest with you,
Okay.
well, I hope everyone else is thinking, what am I good at, and how can I play a part in this movement,
Uh,
and do what they and do what they can do for it.
well, congratulations on your success. I'm very happy for you, and I know there's so many other things I wanted to talk to you about, but I've really taken a lot of your time already. But I just want to steer people towards where they should go to get this book. So obviously it's on Amazon, but is there a special place you want people to go where it benefits you more?
No, I mean the push was on Amazon early on, so you can buy it on Amazon. I think
Okay.
it'll be yeah. So just look on Amazon for it.
Okay. So go to Amazon.com, check out The Case
Yeah,
for
the case
Christian
for Christian.
Nationalism. by Stephen Wolfe. And is it going to be on Audible as well, or Kindle?
Yeah, they're working on Audible now. Yeah, they are. And
Okay.
soon there should be shirts. You see my shirt here.
Oh,
They
nice.
should have shirts. I know they have mugs now. And I think it'd be awesome if guys literally wore this as their gym shirt, because
Oh,
it's enough people are going to get around. It's a really cool. I mean, Canada did a great job on the cover art,
uh-huh.
and I think it'd be great if they had these, they wore these around, and then they can meet people they don't even know who's like, hey, wait a second, I have that book, or I heard about that book, and
I would
not for
totally
my,
wear it.
and this is not for like, this is not so I can sell more books, but just because then you can start getting to know people who have similar ideas, and in your community, or your gym, you could start a Christian nationalist
Yeah, like a group or
gym club or
something. Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah,
Lifting
yeah.
club. Be great.
Raw milk, heavy lifting, Christian
Yeah,
nationalism.
yeah, raw egg, yeah, like a raw, yeah, raw egg, raw milk, Christian nationalism.
Yeah, awesome, brother. Well, thank you so much for giving me your time, and to the audience as well. And if people, last question, if people want to reach you, follow you, where can they go?
Yeah, I mean, you can just search my name, Stephen Wolfe, on Twitter and look for this. I don't think anyone's trying to imitate me yet, as far as I know, but you can find me through that, and I should be there.
Twitter. Okay. All right.
Twitter.
Cool. All right. Well, God bless, Stephen, and
All right.
I hope for continued success.